Now we want to move on and talk about the physiological changes of pregnancy, of course, in the uterine changes. In this talk, particularly, we are going to focus in the uterus. So, what is it that these changes in pregnancy do to the uterus in order to prepare the baby, the development of the fetus? Because of course the changes in pregnancy are very important because they are going to support both the development and growth of the fetus. So the uterine changes, it's very important us as midwives to understand this, because we are going to have a better understanding of labor and everything that deals with postpartum hemorrhage and all sorts of complications. So imagine this is the uterus. So this is the uterus. Of course, down here we have the cervix, and after the cervix we have the vagina, and that's a vagina opening. So this is the uterus, and this is the layer of the uterus. Of course, it's in the endometrium, and we want to talk about the changes that happens in the uterine changes when we are talking about pregnancy, the physiology of pregnancy. Of course, we know that we have the ovaries here, and it's the ovaries that are going to be secreted via this, the fimbrium, and then they're gonna go down these, the fallopian tubes. And we know that the uterus is is made up into three parts. So we have the fundus, so that's the fundus of the uterus. And we also have the body of the uterus, so that's a body of the uterus. And as well as that, we have the cervix, so that's the cervix here. All these parts constitute the uterus. Now, at the start of pregnancy, hormones are going to be secreted, and one of the hormones secreted is estrogen. And what does estrogen do to the uterus? Well, of course, we know that estrogen is going to stimulate growth of the uterine muscles, growth of the uterine tissue, growth of the cervical tissues in preparation for labor. Because what estrogen does is that it's going to cause growth. It's going to have an effect on the uterus, stimulate growth, growth of the uterus. So the reason why the uterus glows, the reason why this glows is because of the production of estrogen. So a large amount of estrogen produced by the corpus luteum. Of course, the corpus luteum doesn't secrete as much as estrogen as it does secrete progesterone. So before the luteal phase, estrogen is going to be secreted in the high amount by the follicles, by the Graafian follicles, the mature Graafian follicles. Those are the ones which are going to secrete a large amount of estrogen, and that's simply because estrogen is going to go around in the blood, and then it's going to start causing maternal growth of the uterus. So it's estrogen that stimulates that, and as well as that, besides that, what estrogen does is that estrogen is going to cause the cervical mucus to start secreting, the cervical cells also it's going to stimulate growth. But there is another hormone which causes the cervical, the cervix, the cells of the cervix to start secreting the mucus, forming the plug, and that's after fertilization. And that hormone we'll talk about later on, but it's going to start forming the plug in order to prevent the entry of ascending infection which may come out from the vagina and towards the uterus to affect the baby, or for example to protect the baby from descending through the cervical opening. And this is very, very important. So it's a cervix. And as well as that, the uterus being the most affected organ in the process of pregnancy, there's going to be an increase in size of the uterus. So as we say that, as we have talked about that also, it's because of estrogen. And as well as that, it's going to be two divisions of the cervix. So for example, this is the isthmus of the cervix. So this is the isthmus. Of course, we know that the fallopian tubes are made up into three parts. And this is the isthmus. We're not going to talk about the infundibulum, all those things. We are all only interested in the isthmus. So this side here, due to softening because of the estrogen, is going to start divisions. They will start causing divisions, up until they reach the body of the cervix, the body of the uterus, to form what we call the upper uterine cervix, uterus segment. And this is due to the influence of estrogen. And then the Braxton-Hicks of contractions, these are very and painful contractions which are present from the start of pregnancy up until birth. And we term them as Braxton-Hicks contractions, probably after the guy that discovered it. I have no space there, but that's a contraction. Braxton-Hicks contractions. They're going to cause the uterus to divide into the lower uterine segment, and that's how we have the lower uterine segment of the uterus. And as well as that, the growing fetus, after being fertilized in the fallopian tubes, it's going to come down here, form into something called the modula, and then it's going to come down also down there. So the cells of the developing zygote, the developing embryo, they are going to divide. There's going to be the trophoblast, the chorion of the embryo, the ones which are going to form the placenta, and the ones which are going to form the developing embryo. So there are the other hormones which are going to form the placenta. Once the zygote has implanted itself in the uterus, they are going to produce an hormone called the human chorionic gonadotrophic hormone, the HCG. And that's a hormone of pregnancy that will stimulate the production of hormones in pregnancy. So for example, estrogen, progesterone, relaxing hormone, all those things are going to be regulated. And as well as that, there's also going to be increased vascularization of the uterus. It's going to be a lot of blood going in through this uterus. And also as well as that, the corpus luteum is going to produce an hormone called relaxing hormone. And this hormone is very, very important, as it will cause the the muscles of the myometrium to relax so that it doesn't push the developing embryo down there to be excreted. And as well as that, remember the hormone that we talked about causes the cervical cells to produce these hormones, to produce the cervical plaque as a result of the mucus from the cervix. Well, of course, it's this hormone. It's a relaxing hormone. That's very good because it's going to prevent the ascending infection to start coming down from there, and there's not going to be any abortion because of this plaque, cervical plaque. So relaxing hormone is very, very important hormone in pregnancy. And as well as that, we are going to talk about the other reproductive system, which is the vagina. Since we have already talked about the cervical changes in the cervix, we are going to talk about the vagina. So on the vulva, there's going to be increased vascularization of the vulva. So there's going to be a lot of blood vessels, a lot of blood going through the vulva. And that's good because we want to supply, and of course we want to sustain the developing embryo inside with a lot of nutrients that are needed for it to grow. But as a result of increased vascularization, then you are going to see the darkened vulva. So women who are pregnant, they are going to have always the vulva which is darkened as a result of this increased vascularization. So it can't be light, it can't be any other color, it's only going to be darkened as a result of increased vascularization. And as well as that, we are going to talk about the changes in the skin. And those changes in the skin are as a result of the melanocyte stimulating hormone produced by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Because there's going to be, this hormone is going to change the women who are undergoing pregnancy to change the color. For example, the darkened code here, called the linear nigrode, and that's as a result of the melanocyte stimulating hormone. So also in women, there's going to be the change in color of the face. So they could be dark, or most of them, yeah, probably they are dark. Even if they were light, they could be a change in color, a slight change in color, because the melanocyte stimulating hormone is circulating in the blood. So it's very, very important. And as a result of estrogen causing the increased maternal tissue, growth of maternal tissue, there's going to be, when the maternal tissue is stressed beyond what it can afford, or beyond what it can afford, it starts going to form stretches. And those are what we call the striae. Striae is going to be formed as a result of the increased maternal tissue. As a result of increased vascularization, we can also develop what we call varicose veins, a condition very, very common in women. So that's what happens in the uterus. When we are coming in now, talking about the hematological changes, it is also very important to talk about the hematological changes in pregnancy, because also this is going to be affected. There is no any other system in the maternal circulation or maternal body which is not going to be affected as a result of the growing fetus. No, every system is going to be affected. So it's very important to hematological, it's very, very important to notice everything. So when we talk about hematological changes, we are talking about everything about the blood. So the first thing that is going to happen is that there is going to be increase in blood, red blood cells. There's going to be an increase in hemoglobin because we want to support this BDA. We want to sustain him, of course. And as well as that, I think that's all that's to talk about, because the red blood cell number is going to increase, the HB is going to increase in maternal tissue, and as well as that, there's going to be an increase in clotting. And this is good, but it is bad at the same time. This is both. Because what happens is that this is going to protect the woman from developing postpartum hemorrhage. As well as that, because what it does, it's going to increase the production of prothrombin 3. That's a clotting factor. And when that happens, is that simply means we are not going to have the process of blood loss as a result of postpartum hemorrhage. But this can also develop into what we call deep vein thrombosis, where a clot will be formed in the mother's circulatory system, and then it will circulate around about in the blood, causing all sorts of problems. So we don't want, this is wanted. Also, it could be dangerous. And as well as that, there's going to be an increased metabolism. So having talked about this, we want to talk about metabolism. All these are the changes that happens in the woman, because pregnancy is a metabolic demand process, and it's going to cause the production of thyroid hormone, and this hormone will increase the metabolic rate of the mother so that the mother can carry on with the pregnancy. Those are some of the physiological changes that happens in pregnancy.